Christmas break?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for coming down. I know this isn't your district either, so we appreciate the ride over.
So happy to be here.
So are we live on the Facebook now?
We're live on Facebook.
All right.
Now.
Cool. I'm going to go ahead and share it real quick.
Oof. Oh,
Share.
here goes our 1 minute that the
Yes, this is the part that you're supposed to edit out of YouTube.
yeah.
Live now. Tune in.
See, I'm getting it. I'm getting down pretty good with this now.
Yeah, well, you're much younger. Dakota and I are the two far ends of millennials. He's the world's youngest millennial, and I'm just about the world's oldest millennial. So
True.
I would be the cream filling.
yeah, you're right. You're right there in between, right?
I love that.
All right, very good. One other thing that I don't have here is my official introduction.
Where's it at? It's probably underneath the laptop.
I can take care of it this time if you want.
You got it? You got it memorized?
No, not quite. What do I do with my gum?
You said gum, not gun, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You brought a gun to the second podcast.
not this time.
The second time Danny was on the show, he jumped over he jumped into the podcast over the back fence and got in. He was a last-minute adjustment because somebody was sick.
I had a very, very late invite.
Obviously, if you jumped over the fence.
Yeah.
Yeah, carrying a gun. Like, I just couldn't believe one of my neighbors didn't see him and, like, call the police. And all of a sudden we have the police knocking on the door for a robbery in progress that interrupts the show. That actually would have made for pretty good content.
Just not good video.
No, not good video, but, well, depending on how far the police got before we heard him. Could have been something that was played on.
And at 42 minutes, Danny gets tased.
All right, everybody ready? I'm going to remember to start the recorder, and we're going to have a good time. Welcome to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast on the We're Libertarians Network. I'm your host, Jeremiah Morrell, and as always, I'm joined by our co-host, Dakota Davis. Hi, Dakota.
I'm excited for tonight.
You should be. Our show is about our lives in rural Indiana. It's a show about folks who are involved in politics, and we promise that our episode is going to be a fun and easy listen. We interview people who are influencers, elected officials, political experts, and folks that we just find interesting. Our guest today is definitely all of those things. We are joined by Melanie Wright, State Representative of Yorktown, Indiana. Welcome, Melanie.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
So we're excited to have you. And then in our co-host chair, our fourth co-host chair, we have a big announcement, Dakota. It's Danny Morrell.
That's right.
Baby brother.
Officially in the co-host chair this time, not just a guest chair.
I'm paid now.
That's right. Yeah, you got a free beer, right?
No,
I brought that. No, I'm really excited. Got to write a bio, and happy to be here and feel like I'm contributing.
On the website now.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if you go to the bosshogliberty.com and you look at hosts, there are 8 co-hosts listed now. You're one of 8.
One of 8.
That's
better than 1 of 10, I suppose.
That's maybe someday Melanie will agree to be a co-host too. So in addition to Danny, we've added Chase Peyton and Kade Koger, who have both been on. They've passed their auditions, and they're officially co-hosts. So you can, if you go to the website, you can click on their names, find their contact information, and how to follow them and interact. And it's got a link and a listing of all the episodes that they've been a part of. So we're glad to have you on the show, Danny.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
All right, Dakota, you had a busy week without me.
I did.
We've gone a whole week without seeing each other. We haven't gone more than 2 hours without speaking, but we've gone a whole week without seeing each other.
Yeah, and I had the first 2 days of this week on vacation too, and I still had a busy week. How does that happen?
You had a busy week at work?
No, like not at work, just like in life. My life was busy, and I was supposed to be relaxing and doing nothing but sitting on the couch and breathing.
Yeah, you did more than that.
Yeah.
You were like the number one media outlet for Henry County on Monday night.
It got wild. I didn't expect that. Like now I know how those people that like go viral.
You know how they feel?
Yeah, I feel like a local celebrity.
So on Monday night, you went to the Memorial Park Board meeting.
I did.
Without me, I was out of town.
Chase was supposed to go with me.
He committed to it last week on the air. We should note that he flaked out.
And we were all going to go to Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yep.
And then Well, all of a sudden, at the very last minute, Chase said, "Hey, man, do you really need me at this thing?" I was like, "No, dude, you're okay. I can handle it. No big deal." So it was just me. I covered the Memorial Park Board meeting of them trying to move the Doughboy statue. This was whenever they had the public comment, the floor open for public comment, and I'm almost convinced that there's never been a park board meeting that has been so well attended.
It was pretty solid. You probably had 30 people in the crowd?
Yeah, about 30 people, all over the age of 55.
Except for you.
Except for me. And Travis
Wyke,
Wyke
of the Courier Times, of the Brisket Gazette.
I always have to think Budweiser to think Wyke.
That's the way he introduces himself. Our local newspaper reporter, before he's a newspaper reporter, he said it's Travis Wyke, W-E-I-K, like Budweiser. I'm like, what? How is that even close? But he goes by that. That or Oppenheimer. Those are either way.
The political climate's a little bit too shaky to say Oppenheimer.
To use that one.
Reporter. Yeah.
So you covered the meeting, and what was the result of it? What happened?
Oh man, it got pretty crazy. If you like the videos on our YouTube channel, it's also on the Facebook page, Sheridan Citizens of Henry County. Other people have shared it. It's gotten like 10,000 views, and the meeting got a little bit wild. And like I said, the audience was all over 55.
And you definitely got the Facebook audience said you need to do something about your sound, so you made an investment immediately. Yeah, they did it. And like everybody kept telling me to turn it up. Like I can't turn up the volume from my end. That's not how it works.
Just turn the voices up.
I'll come to your house and turn up your phone in a minute, sir.
So I immediately got on Amazon, was trying to find boom mics that hooked onto iPhones.
Have them drone dropped in.
Yeah.
We're gonna go ahead.
I'm gonna get a boom mic, and now I'm going to have Chase with me whenever I do these things. And it turns out boom mics for iPhones are extremely expensive.
We're gonna have to get lapel mics for everybody at a public meeting that we cover and ask them all to speak into them.
Yeah.
If we cover the State House, we're gonna need about 100.
At least.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
So that worked out nicely. We and that's something we want to do a little bit more of. You're volunteering or leading the public meeting coverage team.
Yeah, that's kind of
Team Dakota.
What I got from it. I enjoyed my time there. I enjoyed seeing it. Honestly, it was like a great source of live entertainment for me. It was like Citizens of Henry County, the Facebook group, but in real life.
But with real live people.
Yeah, I could see it. It wasn't just a post. I could hear the emotions in the voices.
It was
A+.
Was anybody speaking in caps locks?
It might have gotten to that point. We'll just have to watch the video.
Oh, that's a teaser. All right. Well, let's get to know Melanie a little bit. We were talking downstairs before we started the broadcast. I've met Melanie once before. I do a little bit of work with Purdue University and the extension, their extension arm. It's called PCARET, which is the Purdue Council on Agriculture, Extension, and Teaching. I got through it without making a mistake, so I'm very proud of myself. And she spoke at an event at their Farmland, Indiana, I guess it's a research campus. Mm-hmm. And we met there and kind of talked and got to know you. You've been in the General Assembly, I guess, is this you're finishing your second term, or you're starting, you're in your fourth year, right?
Right. I start my fourth year on January the 3rd, right in the middle of my second term. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. And so you guys are just about ready to get really busy.
Yep, absolutely.
So the way Indiana works, we have listeners that are all over. We have a lot of folks that are local, and we have a lot of folks that are outside of Indiana as well. So you guys are a citizen legislature.
That's correct.
And you just had a budget session last time,
right,
which is your long session, and now you're going to go into a short one where you meet for about 30. Is it 30 days of meeting days, or 30? It's a month long. How does this one work?
We do 10 weeks, and rumor has it we might go a little bit shorter than that. Usually it's right around St. Patrick's Day.
Okay.
So the ending date for sure has to be March 14th this year, but it might be a little bit earlier.
Gotcha. So with that, you have you basically have to. It's an interesting thing. You guys, I wasn't going to go here, but I'm sure I will. You have to basically have a very flexible job to be able to do this, or have or an employer that's working with you, or be a business owner or something.
Right.
Because you're in session 4 or 5 days a week, right?
Right.
For that period of time.
Yeah, so I teach at Daleville Community Schools, and my superintendent, Mr. Paul Garrison, has always been very supportive, as has the school board. And so I just take an unpaid leave of absence, and then I have a retired teacher who comes in and subs for me at the elementary, so she does my K through 5 load for general music. And then I have a former student who comes in and subs for me at the high school, and she does the dance class and the 8th grade general music class, and then they keep her on to finish up a half-day sub. They use her in the resource room.
That's
our special
That's
needs
awesome.
Yeah.
I actually didn't know that you were still a teacher. On the show notes it said the path from teacher to legislator, because, most of the time, a teacher is a full-time job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I thought that you had to have moved on from that. Mm-hmm. But whenever I went and got my hair cut by Clay Morgan, the fourth chair usually
of MVP Barbershop on State Road 3,
he was like, "Yeah, Melanie's still a teacher, right?" And I was like, "Oh, is she?" Like, I had no idea. But that's really cool that you are able to retain that position and still be a legislator.
We just had our big concert on Tuesday night. It went very well.
Good attendance?
Oh, packed house, yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. So then, and right after session, I'll just go right back to that. Usually I go back for a week or two, and then we have spring break, and then I go back and finish the year.
Awesome.
So you've been serving. You've gone through 2 cycles now, I guess. Mm-hmm. What brought you in? Were you serving in a town board or something before? Or is this your first elected office?
No. So I have a master's degree in curriculum instruction, and then I also have a principal's license, which I haven't kept current on because I went into politics. Figure that. Anyway, it's kind of baffling to me when I think about it. But so yeah. So. Where were we going with that?
So, I guess what got you to run for state representative?
Oh, okay. So, I just started noticing everything that was changing in education, like especially with No Child Left Behind that came in around 2001 to 2002. Our first piece of federal legislation that impacted our local school corporations. And so then in 2011, there were 2 substantial pieces of legislation that came down. One was Senate Bill 575, which stripped collective bargaining, except for wages and wage-related benefits. And then the other one was Senate Bill 1, which tied student test scores to teacher evaluations, which I just fundamentally do not believe is right.
And that was the other conversation we had. I think we may have had the live stream camera on, but not the recorder yet. My new fiance, the lovely Sarah Potter, she was in teaching, and that was one of her biggest gripes, and why she's not in teaching anymore is because your performance is tied to to the results of a 9-year-old.
Right. And what it stifles is a child's love of learning, and we're not fostering them to look for the second right answer. We're teaching them to look for one right answer. That's it, and that's how they're going to pass and move on to the next grade level, or that's how they're going to pass and maintain the grade for the school. And we are really causing a lot of angst and anxiety in our children. And I've noticed a substantial change in the last 5 years, as have my teacher friends.
So, did you have a clear primary? Did you jump in and have some work to do?
No, it's so strange. I didn't even know how that worked. I had written to then Governor Mitch Daniels, and then State Superintendent Tony Bennett, and then Senator Doug Eckerty, who was a freshman at the time, and then my state representative. And I received form letters back from the first 2. Now, Senator Eckerty came in and met with 14 of my colleagues on a Saturday morning in my music room. Oh my. And I was so impressed. And even though I wish he would have voted a different way,
he took the time to meet with you.
He did. And he asked me some tough questions. And we always have had this very mutual respect for one another because things morphed very quickly, and some of the things that we were concerned about have come to pass, how our curriculum's being driven by standardized testing and things like that. But I got a form letter back from my state representative. It was probably in June, and I had written just, a detailed email that was not, I tried to be very respectful and point out some different points of view with some data. I made sure it wasn't a canned email. And I just got a canned response, and I just pulled it out of the mailbox and decided I was running for office at that very moment, right in my yard. And I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know I would have to ingratiate myself with 2 county chairs. I didn't know how any of that worked. So when I was working on my master's, I made just a small run for Franklin Lapel school board just to get the experience, but I really didn't know how to campaign, and I didn't win that. I just wanted the experience, but that's the only other venture into politics I've ever taken.
So your district it's very rural.
It's very rural.
It's ag-based, and it covers portions of Delaware County and Madison County, correct?
Right. It's like basically the northern third of Madison County. So I've got the northern part of North Anderson, and then Alexandria, and then Frankton and Elwood. And then I also have Chesterfield, and then moving into Delaware County, Daleville, Yorktown, Western, and Southern Muncie.
So you personally represent the world's largest ball of paint in Alexandria.
I do, and I cannot believe I've not been to visit it yet.
I have not
Can we
either.
point out that Jeremiah is probably the only one here that could just remember that fact off the top of his head.
He's
like such a ball of
autistic.
information.
We had a guy that worked with me for 15 years. A guy named Dan Granger worked at the rebar plant with me, and he's from Alexandria. And I swear to God, I didn't know he was from Alexandria because they call it Ellick.
Yeah.
So I live in Ellick. I looked at the map one day. I can't even find Ellick on the map, Dan. I have no idea where you're talking about.
He was the basketball ref.
Yeah, he was a basketball
I
referee too.
remember
Or
that.
is. I think he still is.
He called too many fouls.
Yeah, he was a little rough on you sometimes in high school, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So anyway, he told me about this ball of paint. And I was like, man, I will never need that until today. And then I was like, there it is.
There it
It's
is.
a baseball. It started out as a baseball that they started painting, and now it sits in probably like a
How does that
podcast
even
studio.
happen?
And it's
Well, you see,
suspended.
you take a ball, and then you start putting layers of paint on it.
Every
I mean, how
visitor.
much time does it take to get something to that?
They let
size?
people come by
Yeah.
and visit and put a coat
Yeah,
of paint on,
and you
and they
paint it.
count it, and
Yeah.
they've tracked how many coats of paint are on the
Uh-huh.
thing.
And that's wild.
Isn't it?
Is that like I think that it might be one of the biggest tourist attractions in East Central Indiana.
No, I'm starting
That
one here
and,
in Henry County.
That and the Steve Alford giant shoe in Henry County.
That's it. Maybe we should start painting the shoe.
Yeah, that's what we should
Every
do.
time Steve
It's
gets
had
a
a
new
few
job, they
coats.
coat it. They paint it. It's in UCLA Bruins colors now. All right. So anyway, sorry, we totally derailed
No,
you there.
no.
I just thought it was
It's
important to
okay.
point out you represent the world's largest ball of paint.
I do. I do.
So the
I hope the paint is happy with their voting record.
if you get a contribution from a ball of paint, you have to put it on your CFA 1
I
form.
probably will.
Christy Avery's watching live, and she said that the ball of paint is not as cool as the biggest ball of twine she saw in Minnesota once. So, well, it's a Hoosier hospitality thing, Christy. You have to accept it. We're very proud of what we have here. They can keep the twine up north, so they're already under 2 feet of snow up there. So you have 2 county chairs that you're working with. So that means you have 2 county parties that you're plugging
Right.
into for volunteers and walking and staying in the good graces, so that you don't end up getting primaried or something terrible happening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, and so I'm very fortunate that I get a lot of help from the state for my race. So every time I've run, I started in 2012, but I did not win that race. I narrowly lost by 444 votes. But every time they've provided a campaign chairman or a campaign manager.
Okay.
So I have a local chairman and then a campaign manager who's just a young guy who comes in and runs everything. And, yeah, and that's how we did it. Like in 2014, which was a total uphill battle because, the top of the ticket is Secretary of State.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, so, I mean, those are, it's hard to get people out to vote in a year like that.
Yep. Yeah. 2014 for Libertarians. Obviously Dakota and I are involved in the Libertarian Party of Indiana, so that's always our biggest. That's our ballot access race. So we have to have ballot access for Libertarians as a minimum. We need 2% in the Secretary of State's race, and then to be considered a major party, we need 10%. So if we ever get to 10%, then we don't have we go to a primary. We make the primary ballots, and we would have primaries instead of conventions at that point.
Okay.
That's the way it's set up.
I just learned something new.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, but this will be where I plug get rid of straight ticket voting, because it would be amazing for everybody.
Yeah.
Straight ticket
Yeah.
voting is the death of us sometimes.
I think you should pick the person.
There are some places like
People lazy.
there are some states where you don't have party affiliations at all. You can be whatever you'd like to be, but I know in Nebraska the Libertarians have an elected state representative or a state legislator. They're a unicameral legislature over there, so they don't have a House and a Senate.
Right.
But they're just nonpartisan.
That's Laura Epke, correct?
Yep. Absolutely.
She came and spoke at our state convention. She did a great job out there.
Yep. Good. It was good to meet her. So anyway, that's my plug for
Very interesting.
eliminating the
Straight ticket.
ticket voting.
Yeah.
It's of the devil. That's what Mama says.
We got rid of it for, I think, I don't know if you were involved in it or not, but for county council races now, you don't have straight ticket voting. You just have to select each individual candidate. So that's our plug for that. So you're from a somewhat ag-friendly district. Did you have a history in that as well yourself?
I do, yeah. I grew up on a farm in Madison County, and so a lot of those people know me as through my grandparents who have passed away, or my parents who are still living and farming. in the same area where I grew up. So, yeah, so grew up with that. My dad worked at General Motors and retired from there, as did my grandparents. So really came, from a solid Madison County family. And then in 2007, I just found a cute little house that was being flipped and moved over to Yorktown. And then I've taught at Daleville for 17 years.
There you go.
Cool.
So I get Yorktown is just barely in Delaware County, I guess, right? But,
well, I guess Daleville first, and then Yorktown.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Okay, so what you said that you have it's a very strong ag community.
Mm-hmm.
So is it kind of like here the demographics very, very conservative in your district?
Yeah, it's very conservative. Yeah. So every little town and city I represent is very, very rural. I mean, so I have 6 school districts and then parts of Anderson and parts of Muncie, but not where the administration is. So the school systems are like Westdale, the Frankton of Frankton LaPel, Alexandria, Elwood, Yorktown, Daleville. So, they're very rural in nature. And I am the ranking minority member on the Agriculture Committee, which I love. It gives me a positive place to put my energies because it's a very, very bipartisan committee. We work so well together, and then we work out the kinks and anything before it goes to a vote, and I appreciate that. The Democrats are in the super minority, so I wouldn't even necessarily have to be part of that conversation, but I am, and I am so happy for that. So it's a good testament to my roots too, because that's where I got my work ethic, and that's where I feel like so many kids when I go to the 4-H fair and support those kids and see, we have our own Marley Hobbs. I've got to give her a plug from Daleville, but she's Madison County queen because she's always shown horses there for years. And so when you have tremendous role models who come out and are showing that to other kids, it's just a tremendous legacy to pass on.
Very
That's
good.
Awesome.
Yep. Danny and I are both former Mr. Henry counties. Believe it or not, Henry County 4-H.
What?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we had.
And then our little sister was.
She was Miss Henry County or an ambassador. She competed in the State Fair Queen contest.
They would not
Wow.
let me compete in that.
Yeah.
But there really is a Mr. Henry County.
There is.
Well,
Yep.
Naturally.
Absolutely.
And now I have learned 2 things.
There you go.
in
I
this
was
short
never
podcast.
Mr. Henry County.
Yeah, we're
Yeah,
almost
Dakota, you're slacking.
the Kennedys of Henry County. So, and then Jeremiah and I are both active in 4-H currently. He's on the
Nice.
association, and so am I. And then I'm a horse and pony leader here in Henry County, and Jeremiah is junior leader advisor, and try to give back and help out as much as we can, and
Absolutely.
enjoy the same things that we were able to enjoy.
Yep. 4-H has been a big part of our background. So, in Dakota's notes for us here, he said that you have authored 4 bills and 8 resolutions, and you co-authored 14 and 17 resolutions. Tell in the 3 years you've been in, what are the bills that you feel like have been most effective, or the biggest success stories?
Okay, so anything to do with human trafficking.
Okay.
So I've jumped on a couple of those as a co-author, and that's just to inform our law enforcement officials about the signs and symptoms to look for, and how to protect our kids. When I was first elected, I had, you think of human trafficking, you think of a third world country, you think of somebody being kidnapped, stuck in the back of a trunk.
Right.
And that's not what's happening. So these kids are being groomed online. And I had 3 people who reached out to me from different parts of the district on the same subject. And so I started investigating. I just felt like it was my torch to try to carry. But so basically our young people are being recruited online because a young girl might think that she's talking to a young boy the same age, but really it's a much older predator. And he just, assumes this position of authority and gains her trust, and then sometimes they end up these girls go missing, and sometimes it's young boys too. Sometimes they're picked up at local malls. I mean, we had a father and son arrested just at the beginning of the year for trying to promote human trafficking in the Muncie Mall. So
Wow, that's horrible.
Yeah, it's all around us, and our kids know more about technology than what we do. So to try to stay ahead of that curve is something. I try to do like a couple of community meetings about it where we just push that information out, and then Representative Terry Austin, who's from Anderson, she and I are going to do an internet safety one coming up in the first couple of months of the new year in Chesterfield, because we share parts of Chesterfield, just to try to help help parents like just get more information so they can stay on top of that.
Yeah,
You know,
absolutely.
because it's just sad. And we see missing posters of young people all over the place. I mean, it's just very frightening. And when I could just talk for a long time.
If you bringing up the Muncie Mall, it's like that just.
Yeah.
You think of it. You think of stuff like that. You think of.
You don't think it's somebody that's from your community.
Chicago, New York,
No.
or something.
Right. Right.
You don't think 30 minutes away from where you live. Like that's wild.
Right. And
So the work you've done, is it in penalties or is it in funds for law enforcement? What type of action have you been able to take?
so this year we're trying to promote a stiffer penalty for purchasers of underage sex. But in the past, when I first got in, Randy Truitt, who was a representative up near the West Lafayette area, had promoted trying to get information into the hands of law enforcement officials so they would know what to look for. Because, a lot of times, they might be picking up a 14-year-old for prostitution, but not knowing, okay, why are we seeing this? Why is she in this position? And so that was a very helpful first step. And then I do a lot of work with Judge Kim Dowling from Delaware County because she was seeing a lot of this come into her courtroom, and then she started asking those questions. What's going on here? And so then she's gone to these national conferences to bring back information to the local legislators, just to have us go, in baby steps to trying to explain what is happening and then trying to wrap ourselves around the youth. And what really happens is the kids who are in foster care, who maybe never get adopted, those kids are so vulnerable because they might fall out of the system and kind of disappear for a while and come back. And a lot of times they end up becoming sucked into this life because people who are traffickers are trained to give you what you need. So, like, if you're interested in nice clothes or having your hair done or your nails done, they're going to step in and provide that. Or in some
they'll reach
cases,
out and hook you, basically.
Yeah, provide an education. But they also train you to recruit. And so that's why you can't keep them in a juvenile facility along with others, young people, because they're trained to recruit. And you have to really back them up psychologically from that, especially if they've come from nothing. It seems to them like it's a win-win to them when they're in it. But of course, we all know our brains are not fully developed until we're 25 for a female and sometimes a little older for a male. Sorry, guys.
I'm getting closer. I'll be 32 this year, maybe next year, right?
You're over the curve. I think it's 27 for guys.
You've got all you're going to have, Daniel Paul.
That's disappointing.
Dakota, you've still got some hope.
I've got some development.
So far in what you've been able to accomplish and what you're doing, what are you most proud of? What are you passionate about? It obviously, it seems like you're passionate about what you're just speaking about. And
So I've got to say the number one thing that I am most proud of in the 3 years I've been in is the constituent work. And I know people would just kind of poo-poo that and say, well, what about the stuff that goes on down in Indy? But there's nothing better than having like a veteran call and need some connection. And if it's state money, we have resources that we could deal with it through our offices in Indianapolis. But if it's a federal issue, I can't even tell you the times we reached out to Senator Donnelly's office. And I mean, sometimes within an hour, they have called that person and gotten a waiver so that they could speak on their behalf on whatever it issue, whether it's veteran issues, Medicare, Medicaid, anything to do with federal issues, and they have been Johnny on the spot. So, and then just to be able to go around the district, and I get to go visit all these places. I mean, some of them are not in my district. Like I got to go visit the prison that we have over in Pendleton. I would have never gotten that opportunity just to walk in and say, hey, I'd like a tour. I got to visit people's farms, riding their combines. I mean, I rode with Kay Whitehead. I've ridden with Dave Howell, and he showed me how all the GPS systems work on the combine, which my dad refuses to use. And got to go into small businesses and ask questions and take tours. And those are the best things because, number one, the informal conversations help me to really know how to vote. And I really know the district well, and I want people to know, oh, yeah, well, let's just call Melanie. Like today, I'm not kidding. At 4:15 today, I got a call from a guy who's helping me out in Indy, and he was like, hey, one of your constituents called. They said that, the Payless store out in Applewood is having this pickup service, where you call in. Like
the click list thing.
Yeah, click list. And that there aren't any handicap parking spots left. So I thought, okay, well, I'll just picked up the phone and called the manager, and I was like, hey, we have this concern. And she's like, well, we did take 2 out, but we're going to relocate those, but there are still handicap accessible parking spaces by both entrances. And then we got to call that constituent back within 30 minutes. So it's stuff like that I love to be able to do that stuff, because I think it's important, because people want their voice to be heard. I didn't think my voice was being heard.
Right. I mean, that's why we elect someone like you into a position, is so you can be our voice and voice our concerns and thoughts. Is there anything that you've thought, well, geez, this is kind of a punch in the mouth or a surprise, that being in this political realm is different than what you expected, or you thought, well, damn, this is not what I wanted?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, sometimes, like, when it comes to education issues, I think we're really good at listening to the people in the larger lobby groups who have an opinion, especially like on how Indianapolis should be dealt with, or Gary. But our rural schools, think about our rural schools. Why do people love our rural schools? Because they're based on relationships. They're based on, a lot of times a parent could say,
small student to teacher ratio.
Right. Before my concert on Tuesday night, I had a parent text me, hey, what time do the kids need to be there? And I texted right back, relationship. And it seems small, but it's really important to parents. So I know a lot of times parents will bring the kids to Daleville Elementary, and they do that because they know us and they trust us with their children. And so I think that's so incredibly important. So I think when we go to fix these large city education issues, which are there, because if you look at it, your education system is a microcosm of where you live. You're going to have about the same poverty rate, crime rate, and things like that. But in the rural schools, we're actually causing problems by trying to fix what we're doing in these larger cities. I almost think that we need to have maybe a separate solution for rural schools or second-class city schools.
So do you think it's a deal where if the state was less involved in the funding process, or is it better for you to make the decision at the state level, to turn it to the federal level, or to say, hey, school boards, go ahead and handle it? And then if you fail, like what happened, I know we can talk about Muncie in a minute, but and there's Muncie Central and the issues they have. But if they, if the school boards fail or it doesn't work, then maybe the state gets involved.
I'm a huge proponent of local control, because I think that's why you elect the school board members, and that's why they hire the superintendent. They like that person's vision, they keep that person on, or they let he or she go because of the vision. But the superintendents have very little say, as do the building principals, let alone the teachers. I mean, just very little say on how the curriculum's being driven. I think, we've cut back on recess. We have this lengthy time where they have to be engaged in reading, and it's not, seriously, we're supposed to have kids read for 90 minutes. We don't even have politicians who can pay attention for 90 minutes, really. And you're expecting a 5-year-old. When I have kindergartners come in on my first day and I have them for 45 minutes, I know I have to have about eight different activities. And then by the time the first semester is over, it can go down to about 4 or 5. But I know that because of my experience. We're expecting them to do these long times of just intense study, and their brains are just not ready for it.
Where does that thought process come from? I have a hard time understanding why. I know that I can't sit still for 10 minutes at a time. Why?
Yeah. That's why we put you at the end, in case you have to get away.
Exactly. Yeah, I might have to do some stretches. But why does that not compute for other people?
So, from what I've heard, that a lot of people involved in this movement toured around the country and found some of the best programs that worked. And they said they didn't go by how they felt. They went by data and what it was showing. But I think if you would check into just any school system who has a success and see what those successes are, I don't think it would be the same thing that we're coming up with down in Indianapolis. Now, I'm also not saying that everything we're doing is wrong. I'm just saying that that's the one area where we have a reform movement, and then we have the traditional movement, but we're not looking for anything to compromise. And I think if those two pillars would meet in the middle a little bit, that we would find an answer that was better for kids. Because right now I think we're more beholden to testing companies than we are to our children.
Should some of these school districts that are struggling, that some of the rural districts, be looking at consolidation, or is it just they just need more tools in the bag, more clubs in the golf bag kind of a deal to be able to solve their issues?
Or do they just need less oversight coming from the state house, and more
Yeah.
just focus on letting the school board make the decision that's
Yeah.
right for the school.
I think a combination of all that. I think less oversight's great, local control is great, but also just like so school choice is here to stay. We're not going to rewind that. We're not going to pull the train back in the station on that. I mean, I know some people just vehemently disagree with that, but once it's here, then let the school corporations compete. You know, I mean, if their big thing is they have a tremendous special needs program, let them promote that. You know, if it's athletics, let them promote that. But right now, we're so prescribed on what we have to do that we all end up looking the same,
Yeah.
and we're just picked because of our geographic location. You
And
know,
it seems like that's the goal in it, and a lot of times it's almost like this is where the conservative, you know, that's where they get off track, right? So you have a lot of Republicans in office that really push for this universal type legislation for school systems, and a lot of times it's people like Glenda Ritz that come in and try to break that up, which typically the conservative will, you know, they'll campaign on smaller government, things like that. But it seems with education they're the exact opposite. And
well, the tricky thing too is a lot of times with our education bills, we might have 7, 8, 9, 10 different ideas in one bill called various education matters. Whereas if it goes through ag, we might be talking about chicken safety or grain indemnity fund, you know?
Yeah.
And that makes it confusing for the people on the caucus who are not on the committee too, you know, because they're like, because if you vote in something good like mentor teachers, then what are you voting in with that bill?
Right.
So you have to, and that's the tricky part. I think it should be divided out a little bit more.
Yeah, so with the ag issues, do you deal? This is a Henry County question, so I'm going to ask this. Do you deal with? Do you deal with German shepherds? do you deal with
I think
industrial
that
wind farms at all on the ag
Hannah's
side, or is it what?
So we,
Because that's been a big hot button issue here, where we've got a lot of. There's people on both sides of it. It's kind of become our local civil war, but. At the state level, do you have any involvement with that? Or
we have not thus far.
Yeah.
That's interesting, though, because we have some up in Alexandria and then further beyond my district into Tipton.
Right.
But no, we have not dealt with that at the state level.
Okay.
Maybe before me?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. It seems like it's handled county by county.
Yes.
And
I think it is.
You know, it's every county has their own permitting process and setbacks, and I'm just curious if you've seen anything come through on the state level yet.
It is interesting because I did go up and tour a gentleman who let them come in on his farm.
Yep.
And how he gets paid for the right of way, and it's interesting. He thought it was a win-win for him. Obviously, not everybody.
Right. No,
thinks that way.
we've had concerns here with neighbors being concerned about distances and resale value of homes,
Sure.
and it's been a long drawn out process here in the last couple of years. And to this point, they haven't had any constructed. They've had a couple of them have been permitted, and the abatements have gone away, and it's been a long process. We had a big embargo on confined animal on feeding operations as well, and I think the state had some involvement with that over the years, which I guess would be another ag issue.
Yeah, we did a comprehensive study, which I so appreciated. I think it was a year ago, March or April, and Purdue released the report to us in that summer study committee because we really didn't know, because every county has different ordinances for that.
Right.
And so that was very interesting to try to ascertain, like, okay, if somebody's trying to come in and do that, where's the best place for it when we didn't have all of that data. So that's been very helpful.
Okay.
And actually, Senator Jean Lysine was a fundamental part of that.
Absolutely. I know she's on the Senate Ag Committee as well.
She is,
Comes from the medical and the ag background. She represents us here. She's my state senator. And I think we're about the very furthest northern part of her district. She covers so much ground visiting people because she's in Henry County all the time, but she lives south of Greensburg. It's an hour and a half to get here, so it's a when you guys get to draw districts again, it's
I know.
mercy for some of you.
I know. She and I talk about that because I think we both share that it's so important to be out in the district and be seen. You know, I mean, it's your job to kind of be a commercial and a snapshot for what's going on in your community.
Well, very good. So I want to take a little bit of time and talk about there's an article that came out in the Indianapolis Star kind of previewing what they expect the biggest issues to be coming into this cycle. So there's three that we want to try to talk about. We're going to talk about cold beer and Sunday sales, which I know has had I don't know what you guys call it. It's a summer studies committee or there's been an off-cycle committee that's been looking into it.
It's a summer study committee that happens in October.
That goes all the way into
that goes all the way into the fall. Yeah.
And then I want to talk. We're going to talk a little bit about the CBD oil thing because that's become a big hot button issue. Mm-hmm. And then I think concealed carry got agreed to go to a summer study committee. So I want to kind of spend a little bit of time on that as well. But on this, I guess the alcohol thing, there's almost two different sides or two different issues. There's Sunday sales, and then there's also
cold beer,
temperature. Mm-hmm. So what? Help us understand where that's at in the process. If you're expecting a bill, if you even know at this point what's going to come at you, or do you find out when bills are filed? You've had an organization day, I guess, so now you know some of what's coming.
Right, and we know a lot of what's coming is based on what the summer study committees are. So obviously this was picked up in summer study committee, and I don't know that they had any real substantial conclusions at the end, which sometimes we don't at the end. So I'm not sure how much momentum it will get, especially if we're just 10 short weeks in. But I will say that I find this very interesting for representing a very rural district. I've always taken the stand that our small businesses are what comprise our small cities and towns, and they're the backbone of what happens.
Right.
So that's why I've always been really protective of, like our small package liquor stores, because they're part of that. And I've always found it would be tricky to compete with a big box store on that issue, or even a convenience store, because you think people are in and out on that all the time. But I just think from a rural standpoint, when you're talking about possibly having one of your small businesses go by the wayside because these two different philosophies are meeting and trying to find some sort of compromise, that it could hurt your local economic development as well.
So that's when you look at it as a very much an individual district representative, and you're considering that side. Mm-hmm. Okay, so is that the issue for Sunday and for temperature, or is that the temperature side that you would say you fall on that side of it?
Okay, so that's just on the Sunday issue side. Now they're taking us into the temperature side, which almost got put in as an amendment last session, and then it got dropped at the last minute. So I think that's why it was discussed more in the summer. So I'm really not sure where that one is going to be as far as temperature is concerned, because think about it. We probably all go to a convenience store once a day, I would say. You're really going to change. If that changes,
your puppy.
Oh my gosh,
I can hear it.
So cute.
Yes,
but it will really change the foundation of what we know. As far as like alcohol sales. So, I think we really need to think long and hard about the consequences.
So is that the thought process between most of the people that sit in a position like you, is how it'll affect the local community and the businesses, opposed to, because it's not wrong to buy alcohol on a Sunday. It's not wrong to buy a cold beer on a Sunday, but it's just thought as, we are trying to save jobs and keep this community whole.
I would say that's my view. As I don't know why I just latched onto that just from the get-go. Because I've seen so many of our smaller cities and towns kind of struggle to keep the businesses intact.
Right.
And when they've gone away, they've tried to rebuild it, like Alexandria is doing now. So I wouldn't say most people think like this. Mm-hmm. I just think it's particular to me because of the district I represent.
Well, when anyone's talked to me about the fact that you can't buy a car on a Sunday,
right,
or you can't buy alcohol on a Sunday unless it's a brewery, or you go and purchase it at a restaurant, I just claim that it's part of Indiana's charm. There's no way to really explain it or give reasoning for it. It's just the way it is. It doesn't make sense. It's not bad necessarily, but it's also hard to wrap your head around it.
Well, it's kind of annoying sometimes.
Yeah, but you can just buy more alcohol on Saturday if you want to.
Right.
It's not.
Now, there are some members of the General Assembly who are have very conservative beliefs about alcohol, like it shouldn't be purchased on a Sunday. I mean, that's a day saved for family. Or if there's been alcoholism in the family, that's a one-day break that the kids get. So, I mean, there are a few who are of the mindset of that's how they make the decision on that. And then others, go with one lobby group or another.
Right. Yeah, from our side, I mean, obviously we all tend to lean pretty libertarian on our side, so it's, if a business wants to make the decision to be open on a Sunday, it's a product that's legal 6 days a week. Why are we going to prohibit that? And then I was Rex Bell's campaign manager. He was our candidate for governor last time.
Sure.
So in the Evansville debate, he had the line that, you could have a guy that's selling beer in his store that's warm on a January day. His furnace goes out, and all of a sudden he's breaking the law when his furnace breaks, and it's 35 degrees in the store, and he's selling cold beer. So it's, I don't know. It just seems.
Also, the line, anything that's legal on a Saturday should be legal on a Sunday.
That's true.
was what he said.
That's true. I don't know. It's frustrating for looking from the outside, and I know that the way that it's set up, a lot of these businesses are designed, and you have licenses, or you've had to invest into that business model. So I think that's a portion of what some of the representatives have been cognizant of, is that you have small business owners that this is their livelihood.
Right. And a lot of those small business owners say that if Sunday sales and cold beer sales were to happen, then it would make their very costly alcohol and liquor licenses to just be useless. Like it wouldn't matter at that point. Is the thought process behind it. And I can see that side. I just don't necessarily agree with it.
Yeah. Plus the competing with, isn't Sunday like the second biggest shopping day of the year?
Yeah.
So
it's whenever most Americans go out and do their grocery shopping. So it's going to be
convenience.
Yeah, it's going to be more convenient to whenever you're at Kroger to do your grocery shopping to pick up a 6-pack of beer than going to the liquor store sometime during the week.
Did you know before last year that the reason that a grocery store can sell spirits is because they have a pharmacy?
I did. I learned that since I've been down in Indianapolis.
Once Marsh sold their stuff, that's I think that when everybody it became put on everybody's radar. But the way we have it set up in Indiana is that a pharmacy can sell alcohol. So when Marsh sold their pharmacy business before they sold the grocery stores, they sold it to CVS, and then they immediately had a fire sale, and everybody went out and bought cheap liquor.
Yeah, I had no idea that was even a thing. Like it. I mean, apparently, obviously, the people at Marsh didn't even realize that was the thing, and they had to do the fire sale because they're like, "Oh crap, we got to get rid of this."
And then the gentleman that owns Rickers, the way that he was selling cold beer and spirits is pretty comical as well, because he has a restaurant. He has a restaurant.
Yeah.
So, but it does surprise me or confuse me a bit on how the ciders and whatnot can be sold cold, because you go to the local Kroger and you can buy a cold 6-pack of cider, but not beer, but it's sitting right next to each other.
You end up getting elected, and all of these things become your problem, I guess.
I
right?
know. I know. Who knew? I've learned more about alcohol than what I ever learned in college.
Planning a wedding.
We can talk about your college life, though.
Planning a wedding. I've learned more about bathrooms and tent rentals in the last 2 weeks than I have than I ever thought I would know in my life. So I empathize. But I'm glad you're getting educated on it all. The next major issue that I had that I wanted to ask about.
Speaking of college,
it was CBD oil. So there was and I don't know where you're at on the cannabis issue, on CBD, on recreational or on medicinal marijuana. So I guess you can share some of that as well. But there was a tiny baby step forward made in the long session last time where, I'll try to get this right, as I understand it, if you can acquire CBD oil, you can register with the state if you have an epilepsy patient in your family, and then you can get a permit to be able to use that for your children. Is that right?
Yeah, and then the Attorney General came down with a little bit more, a much more conservative ruling.
Right. I think that, but see, people had been buying CBD oil in the state of Indiana for a long time before this legislation came out. I remember going to the health food store in Muncie whenever I was like 15 years old with my mom, and it had like there was a bag of chips that had a big pot leaf on them, and they were potato chips infused with CBD oil. That was, that made 6
them healthy,
years
right?
ago. Yeah, they were healthy potato chips at a health food store, and like I've always just remembered that because it was a bag of potato chips with a pot leaf on it. And so then whenever all this came out, and then all of a sudden Curtis Hill declared that the CBD oil is a derivative of marijuana, which is a Schedule I drug. Therefore, CBD oil is a Schedule I drug. So I did a little bit more research into this, and this, I guess, isn't the first time that excise has had to crack down on this, on CBD oil, which I had no idea of. I'd never seen anything about it before, but I guess that Mitch Daniels actually pulled CBD oil off shelves at one point as well. And then at this,
I didn't know that.
I didn't know that either.
I had no idea. I saw the Indy Star article today about it, researching this topic. And then after this legislation was passed, a lot of retailers had pulled their CBD oil off the shelves and put it in stock because this is hundreds of dollars worth of merchandise that they would have had to throw away. And then they just kept it, I guess. So then they all put it back.
They had it in their storerooms?
Yeah, they just had it in their storerooms, and then they put it back on the shelves, and now they're having to take it back off again, which is wild. Like a wild roller coaster if you are one of those retailers here in Indiana for a product that is basically like an essential oil. You know, it absolutely makes no sense because, as I have here on the show notes, to be legal, to be actual medicinal quality CBD oil, it can't have less than, actually I don't think it's on here, but equal to or less than 0.3% of THC, which is the psychoactive drug in marijuana. So, I mean, it just seems crazy to me.
So I was on that summer study committee as well because they would move it to the ag committee. And
because it was hemp.
Right,
yeah, okay.
right. So Senator Lysing headed up that committee when we did a joint summer study committee, and we saw some of those children come in who were affected by epilepsy. So just to hear the emotion in the parent's voice about basically, I've tried everything with my child. My child has to wear a helmet. My child has epileptic seizures and passes out on the floor, like flat down on his or her face.
Oh, yeah.
It's just very convincing. I
Yeah,
mean, we
if
left
you
that
see a
committee
person have a seizure,
supporting-
it's horrible.
Yeah, there's a series on We're Libertarians on our syndicator. So if you go to we'relibertarians.com and you go to the cost, Chris Spangle had an interview with a lady and her daughter named Addie. It's probably an hour and a half long, explaining her epilepsy, the treatment she would receive, and they would go to Colorado to do the treatment, and they're literally ready to leave the state and move out of the state. And I know a lot of families have been there, where you're, if you're looking at doing something that's effective for your child versus moving, you're going to say, sorry,
right,
I'm out. I'm going to go somewhere that I can do, I can take care of my kid.
And to me, if I'm a legislator and I run on the promise of wanting to do what's best for my constituents, why wouldn't I want the best treatment available for a child or a person that is suffering through epilepsy at their disposal, readily and cheaply?
Right. And why do we want to get in between like a doctor's recommendation with a patient? Why are we stepping into that? That was an easy sell for us. As a matter of fact, I think when the bill went before the House, I think it was unanimous, wasn't it?
Yeah, I believe that one was.
Unanimous.
Yeah. Because by that time there was enough of an appetite for it that we wanted to be able to help kids. Now, I'm surprised by the Attorney General's stance on this, quite frankly.
Yeah.
I thought it was,
especially with the with him claiming that it's still a Schedule I substance.
Yeah,
that's heroin.
Yeah.
So what's the next step? Is this? I know that State Representative Lucas is somebody that I've followed for quite a while. I met him in 2012 when he was running. He was down in North Vernon giving a speech, and I was with Rex Bell's campaign for governor at the time, or for Congress at the time. And I met Jim and kind of hit it off, and I've stayed in touch. And I know this has been an issue that he's been working on, and I know Senator Talion has been working on this as well, on not the recreational side, but the medical side of cannabis. Is this all going to get wrapped in together, or is there going to be an adjustment where we say, no, this is, we specifically say that CBD oil is unregulated, or is it going to be up to a certain value and you have to register with the state? What's the solution you're expecting?
Yeah, I don't think we're going to wrap medical marijuana into that at all. I think we're going to keep that a very separate issue, but I do think the legislature will have to sort that out, because there's a clear discrepancy between what we thought we passed and then how it's being interpreted. So, yes, I definitely look for us to be sorting that out immediately.
Okay.
So is it looked at as being something on a state level, as just being a slippery slope, you think, where they don't know where to cut hard lines versus like a gray area, and they're worried about getting it started?
Right. Well, I'm sure that on top of the opioid, issue, and I'm sure they're like, okay, how, are we going to start enabling that? Like, where's the line there? But, for CBD oil, that's an easy line for me. I mean, it's very clear. We're not. We're
not doing anything wrong.
No, we're not. And we have a lot of people who believe in essential oils and believe in like holistic medicine and things like that.
Go to any church and you'll find a group of ladies sitting there that sell it.
Or men.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. Well, I mean, in my experience with my mother and 2 grandmothers, they sell essential oils.
Mm-hmm.
They're dealers, essential oil
They're
dealers.
essential oil dealers.
In the
Just
4th
don't
row of the
catch
Baptist
me with CBD. Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't think they'll ever like cross those two at all.
Is it ever comical to just look back and see what it is that is being discussed and just think of it seems so clear and cut or juvenile, but we're making such a pissing match over it that it seems like it's just common sense, not it doesn't need to be as drawn out and discussed as much as it is. How do you manage that on a personal level and not just screaming?
Make my head spin.
Just out of curiosity, because I have very low patience.
Yeah. So sometimes I just have to vent to some people who I'm close with just to say, really, what just happened? Yeah. What just happened there? Like, especially with like the whole religious freedom thing, my first session. What just happened?
What did I get myself into?
You helped. Well, not you. You were not a part of it. But the legislature helped found the first church of cannabis over that. So,
which is now back in the news again this week.
Bill Levin finds his news very easily.
My wife, Audrey, whenever she was at the University of Indianapolis, actually went to the Church of Cannabis one time. And she said it was a wild ride. Like, they went in there, and Bill Levin is called the Grand Poobah. That's
episode 1. That story is on episode 1 of the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast.
Is it episode 1?
I believe it is. The very first one. You can go back and listen to that one. Very early on. Yeah.
Seems a long time ago.
It's been a lot of, 35 episodes in. So you are listening to the Boss Hog of Liberty podcast on the We're Libertarians Network. It's Jeremiah Morrell and Dakota Davis. Danny Morrell's our newly minted co-host over there. And State Representative Melanie Wright is with us as well. And we're discussing the upcoming General Assembly. And we've talked about
I'd like to point out how good of a job Danny's doing.
He's amazing.
He's doing a great job. His first time as a host.
I've barely been hitting on her.
Your girlfriend's in the other room, sir.
She's keeping the puppy occupied.
She was trying to. The German Shepherd scared her off.
You got a good defense dog.
Yeah.
So, what do you think so far? Do you enjoy this? Are you comfortable?
I do. Because I have, I always am a helper. I just want to help people. So this just gives me just a big territory to do that in. And that's,
sure.
I love that. So I love to be able to go just to every function I can. And I've really tried to change the message. We get to send out so many flyers each session, about what the new laws are, what community meetings we are having. But really tried to switch the message to, if you have something you want me to attend, here's the contact information. I really try to connect with people on my regular Facebook page so that they can just message me. I've put my cell phone number out on my literature before. It's never been abused. So that's the thing where I get to meet all these exciting people, and they feel just as strongly as what I just at one time felt about education, and now it's expanded so much more. But they have their own issues, and the least I can do is take the time to listen to them as I wanted to be listened
Aaron
to.
Dickon is watching right now, and
I love Aaron.
He said that Melanie is a great representative and told us to be nice to you.
Yeah, Danny.
Well, Aaron's fine, but he just needs more hair. So, from your standpoint, you come from an educational background. Is there anything that you're like real fired up about, and you want to try to make some more changes on a state level?
Yes, like as far as education?
Yeah.
So I have requested that we do a study that looks at how, since we've implemented property tax caps, which we've never really, I'm not saying right or wrong, I'm just saying we've not really studied that since it's been part part of our law, and how that and the complexity formula on the complexity index on the school funding formula, which is it's the part of the index that accounts for poverty, and we tweaked it a couple of years ago because some of the wealthier schools were not getting as much per student as what some of the less wealthier schools were, so they tried to tweak it. But when you tweak that, you're still, you still have unequal poverty in different parts of the state.
Yeah, you're not doing as much as what they thought it would.
Right. And then the school choice with the kids being able to move. Because in a small school system, if let's say a kid has $5,000
attached to them.
Right, $2,500 a semester. All right, you have 7 kids walk out of your small rural school at Christmas time.
That's a teacher.
Yeah, that's a teacher's contract. They're half a teacher's contract.
Yeah, I've always thought that might not affect rural community schools as negatively as that. I've always thought that because, I graduated from Tri-High, so 80 people in my graduating class, and that was the largest class they'd ever seen. So during my junior and senior year, we saw a large influx of people coming from Newcastle schools, because of what we talked about earlier with the student and teacher ratio. I always thought that would hurt bigger schools and benefit our smaller community schools. Hurting a school is still hurting a school, but
right. Daleville's benefiting, and we're a small school, but it's at the expense of Anderson, and
I know. I was talking to Clay Morgan, one of our co-hosts, yesterday in his barber shop, and his kids are now going to Blue River Valley. He lives in the Newcastle School District. And Blue River sends a school bus to one of the local grocery stores to pick up kids every day that leave the Newcastle district and they go up to Blue River, which is just amazing to me. You've got that competition going on, but you've got enough students going that it's worth their time to send a bus down every day.
And Indiana has had this longer than what the conversation really blew up with Betsy DeVoe.
Right. So here's what I had heard. So after I lost the 2012 election, I couldn't sleep, so I would just incessantly research at night.
I slept really good after I lost in 2012.
Not me. I was just like, what could I have done better? And so I found that they tried to come in and work with Congress and the United States Senate. And when they weren't making any headway, they started focusing on the state general assemblies. And so that's why you'll see a lot of very similar legislation, especially when it comes to education reform, right to work, and things like that, that simultaneously hit different state legislatures.
Yeah.
And we were just ripe for the picking at that time.
Yeah, I was in the electricians union whenever right to work first happened. So that was a big deal. I can really. That was that was the sky is falling moment for construction unions, especially with prevailing wage and things. And it also enabled for our union, if you hadn't paid your dues in so many months, you weren't a member anymore, right? We don't protect you anymore. And what people don't realize is that right to work got rid of that. So you can still be a union member and still get all the protections of the union, but you don't pay any of the dues and become part of the collective.
You get the benefit without the expense.
Yeah. So that, that was something that a lot of people didn't realize about that, because, being in our community, anything that the Republicans and Mike Pence did was golden. They, they pooped rainbows, and nothing they ever did was wrong. So it was hard to bring that to light.
So what was tricky in teaching is people would inch up this salary schedule, and basically it would be just enough to cover the insurance increase that inevitably came. We were told about it in November, and it would hit in January. So, yeah. So it was it just canceled each other out, but you were still kind of moving up the ladder. But that's all gone.
So the final issue that I wanted to talk about that I think is going to be coming through the General Assembly is the concealed carry.
That was introduced by the libertarian hero.
Yes, by Representative Lucas. So I've got my little lifetime permit card, and when I got it probably 6 or 7 years ago, I had to go to the city police department, fill out a 10 card.
Sheriff's.
No, it depends upon where you live. So at the time, I lived within city limits. So I went to the sheriff's department and said, Jeremiah, you can't be here. You have to go to the city police department. So I actually visited both. But the police department...
You're extra qualified then.
Yeah, I am. No, they just said, you really don't want to hang out here, sir. You can leave now. So they took a 10 card from me, and I filled out an application, sent it to the state police, and I got my lifetime carry permit. So I paid $135 to get my constitutional right to carry my gun. So this bill, as I understand it, would be, hey, we're just going to issue them, or you don't need it at all. We're going to eliminate this licensing requirement.
Yeah.
The flip side of that is, and I had a preliminary conversation about this with Danny this week.
Well, and I'm very pro Second Amendment, but
Right.
we actually differ on this a
Right.
fair amount. I'm more on the left side of things.
You think we should have the process. You think we should have this, continue to keep what we have, or have training, which we don't have any training right now.
Yeah,
so if you want to, you can have a gun. You just all you have to do is be able to suck air, and you're good.
For
Not
years,
have a felony.
Yeah, years and years, it was part of your schooling, even through the public schooling, that you would have shooting sports, and you would at least understand the processes on how to load, handle, and fire a
Respect
firearm.
a firearm.
Exactly.
Most of all, not just loading and firing, but the respect that comes with carrying
a lot of what would go through like a hunter education course.
Right.
And that was just through the school system, which was great. I understand how that's separated, and it's probably really hard to introduce that again into our school system. For me, it's very hard to just say, okay, you don't have a felony, you have a pulse, you get to carry a gun. Now, I do believe that you should have the right to own one in your household, but just to say you can kind of willy-nilly have it in your car, have it on your person, but have no...
Yeah, but does the process that we have now with a concealed carry permit, how does it doesn't really differ from the process that you go through whenever you go and purchase a gun, which I think is Representative Lucas's entire point here, is that whenever you go and you buy a firearm. So I went out and bought a Ruger LCP this year, a little small handgun that I can carry in my back pocket. Nobody knows I have it, right? So I go and I buy this firearm. I have to go through the background check process, right?
Which is what?
You have to fill out the big form.
Which is you claiming you're not crazy and you don't have a felony.
Right,
That's
but they
all
also
it is.
they run you through a federal and a state documented background check. So if they know that I have so say that I did something and all of a sudden I got a court ordered like 1 session psychology treatment or a visit to a psychiatrist. I'm turned down to carry a weapon. Or take my father, for example. Whenever he was 19 years old, him and his friend stole 50 cartons of cigarettes from a gas station, and now he's never allowed to carry a firearm. So, I mean, you can't buy the firearm, and basically whenever you go and you get your concealed carry, you're paying a bunch of money to get a card and for them to run a background check and take your fingerprints. What's the difference there? There is nothing. There is no difference. I could see the tension, and I could see the resistance. It would make more sense to me if there was more to getting a concealed carry permit. But we just don't have that. We don't have like the education. We don't have the training requirements or anything like that. It's literally the background check, and they take your fingerprints.
So we've debated this. I want to hear from Melanie, I guess, a little bit on it, and if you think there are changes coming at all. If this has got any chance of going anywhere, or if it's just everybody having an opinion, but it's going to be status quo.
Yeah, I think it's going to be that because it's so controversial. It's a short session. I don't think. No, I think that this came out of just wanting to look at the issue more, and then it got studied in the summer, and I just don't think it's going to have any legs on it. I really don't.
Right.
Okay.
It's interesting, being in a rural district where a lot of times kids go out and hunt with their dads. I mean, it's all over Facebook this fall. I mean, I had a second grader who said, yeah, my dad and I just went out deer hunting. So, to be able to look at it from that point of view, that scope just makes it, okay, these are people who hunt and they maybe target shoot on Thanksgiving,
Yeah.
it's not the same with every
Yeah,
district, obviously.
and, right,
And that's
and
what makes it such a volatile.
Especially in a state like
Yes.
Indiana.
Yes.
You know, these Midwestern states where it's so rural, and then we have places like Indianapolis.
And then we're attached to Gary.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, it's so hard
Right.
to paint with the same brush.
Right.
It comes to an education level and trying to, I guess, educate people to the best of our abilities. And
Yeah.
Now, I've got to say, like, I have a carry permit, but it didn't bother me to go get fingerprinted.
Right.
Right. Yeah. Never
I mean,
bothered
like-
me either.
It doesn't. That part doesn't bother me. It's the this is where I agreed with Jim. It's the licensing of a right and paying money to have a right
Right.
that you have.
Yeah.
Which he's very vocal about.
Right. And that was the
Right.
you know, he definitely got some hay out of the the licensing of the media. Is where, you know, I'm a media
Right,
person now
right.
apparently, so I would have to pay pay a fee to the state and go through a background process and be approved by the state police or somebody to be able to have a podcast, or and it's the same that same logical application as I think what has a number of people frustrated about having
Yeah.
to have a you know.
But then on the flip
to
side,
have
your
your-
podcast isn't going to kill someone with the movement of your finger,
I hope not.
right? So, but I mean, I can see it. I see it from both sides, definitely. For me, I will. I mean, anytime I go out to the bar, I carry a gun with me. That's just our culture in the place that we live in Newcastle and Henry County. Everybody's got a gun, right? Everybody goes out hunting. Like I went out into the woods for the first time with my dad to hunt whenever I was 6 years old. Like, that's part of my culture. That's how I was raised. But I can definitely understand the flip side from places like Gary, Indianapolis, which for the 7th year in a row broke records for the murder rate. Like, I understand the hesitation on this concealed carry reform, and I definitely understand it, but I can see it from both sides.
Well, and I think, you know, an interesting perspective I have. So I have 20 different elementary classes. I have to teach them all how to hide for an intruder, as do the other specials teachers, as do their regular general education teacher. So,
But does this
and I
does
know
this,
that's
does this
kind of
affect
chasing
that?
on it.
Right. No. Yeah, I understand that. And
But sometimes that all gets thrown together,
Right.
and the lack of mental health resources gets thrown on top of that, the opioid
Right.
crisis,
And
then that's when we have trouble, like, picking all of this stuff apart.
that
When it
that
comes to
I think
something
is the
like
biggest
this.
thing whenever we talk about gun control. We talk about the guns, right? We talk about the tool, but we don't talk about whenever you lay the graphs on top of each other of violent crime acts versus whenever we started cutting funding for mental institutions, right? Because it's a direct correlation. Okay, whenever you put it on a graph, you can literally see it. Whenever the funding goes down, the violent crime numbers go up.
we replaced our mental hospital in Newcastle with the GEO prison.
Oh, really?
Yeah, the site of the state prison that's the GEO prison is our former mental hospital. So that's the way that we've shifted in public policy, and I was a child when it was a mental hospital. Dakota was not even awake or alert at that point.
Nope.
But
I was there.
Yeah, Danny. We used to be a cut through back from where we grew up. We used to drive through there. It was the way to 3. Cut off the entire. When they put a prison there, all of a sudden you got a lot less county roads you can drive through. But yeah, that's the mental health thing. I will agree completely that we've, I don't know how we got there or when it happened. If it was during Evan Bayh's time or Frank O'Bannon's time or where.
You named
Where
two
this-
Democrats there.
Well, they were
I
governor.
don't understand.
It's been a while.
It's unfair.
But that's the era that changed, in at least in my memory. When I first became aware, Evan Bayh was governor of Indiana, so I've got a memory from him to now.
I definitely don't remember Evan Bayh being governor of Indiana.
Well, you're 21. Congratulations again. So, I don't know. I guess at this point, final thoughts, or what I guess we're probably at that point of the show. Is there anything else that you want to talk about that you're introducing, or that you think is coming in this session that we've skipped or forgotten?
Oh, no, I think you've got the 3 hot topics for sure. It'll be interesting to see how those pan out. And, I'm just really I want to keep working away for kids, especially when it comes to human trafficking and when it comes to funding for their education.
if people want to learn about you, reach out to you, get in touch, what's the best way to do that?
So the best way is on my personal Facebook page, which is just Melanie Wright. I also have a political page, but I just pull that up during campaign season. And I have a Twitter account. I'm much better on Facebook than I am on Twitter, but I have a Twitter account.
How many characters do you have on Twitter? Are you still at 140, or did you get bumped up to the 280?
No, I don't even use what I have now, so I'm sure I didn't get bumped up.
Do you have a blue check mark by your name?
I don't know.
Not verified yet.
Seriously, if you check my regular Facebook page, you can track where I am every time.
Another listener here, just real quick, is some of our comments come in real time. Brantley Spicer's listening from up in Delaware County. He said the former mental hospital in Butlerville is now a military training center. So once again, all of these former state hospitals or state mental hospitals are not there anymore. So, well, thank you very much for being on.
You're welcome.
We're excited to have you on, and
it's been fun.
Definitely have an open door here anytime you need a recording studio, whether you want to be on the show or not. You're welcome. We're happy to help you out.
Thank you.
Danny, final thoughts for us? Anything you need to plug?
Well, I don't have anything to plug. I'm not selling anything for the next couple of weeks anyway. No, it was cool getting to know you, Melanie. I hope you have a great Christmas and New Year. I appreciate your service. I know that it's a lot to probably stomach and deal with on a daily basis beyond what any of us at the table know, and it's very much appreciated. And even though we probably won't always agree upon our thoughts and beliefs, it's still wonderful to have people like you in a place of leadership and somewhat power. So I thoroughly appreciate it. Besides that, final thoughts is Merry Christmas and Happy New Year. I hope everyone enjoys their family. Jeremiah and I have had a few losses this week, and it makes you kind of appreciate what our kind of align where our thoughts and beliefs are to an extent, and just appreciate who you have, what you have, and when you have it, and just enjoy your life.
Yep,
and that's it.
Very good. And the fans are all wanting to know about the playoffs. What's going on? Sports update from Danny. We want to know about the AFC playoff picture and the playoffs. All
right. So NFL-wise, AFC, it's going to definitely come down to the Pittsburgh Steelers and the New England Patriots. New England seems to have something in the rule book that always allows them to win against all odds, which is interesting. NFC playoff news, the 49ers are way out of it. That's not going to come back.
What do the Colts have? Donnie Morrell is desperately hoping that the Colts win this week.
Donnie Morrell and I have something you will never have, and that's a tattoo of the family crest.
Yeah.
One.
No, I've said I will get that if Dakota gets the sponsors.
I think that the Bills might get a playoff.
Yeah, first time since 2000.
The Colts just need to bury their head in the sand and continue to do what they're doing and lead the first half and fall asleep in the second half and make no adjustments.
I actually watched part of a Colts game a few weeks ago, back when they were in New York.
Yeah,
and it was snowing.
Yeah,
so
in Buffalo.
Bad. Yeah, that was like actual entertainment. That's the first time I've ever watched a football game and thought, "Hey, I'll watch this. This is kind of neat."
It was a circus show. It was hilarious.
Whenever Pat McAfee did his review of his voiceover of when Adam
Vinatieri was kicking.
Yeah,
and he lost $500,000 because he missed that kick in overtime.
Are you serious?
Yep.
This was right before they. This is whenever
3.4% of that would have gone to the state of Indiana. That $500,000. Oh the whole state lost on that. We lost all the income tax.
Thanks a lot, Pagano. Yeah. Another reason why he should be fired. But I mean, that's not up to us.
Yeah, but him watching them. This was the kick whenever he took them into overtime. He tied the game.
The extra point, the world's craziest 43-yard extra point.
Yeah, and they were kicking the snow out of the way, and the Colts used all their timeouts to kick the snow. The refs were throwing all of the staff off of the field because they were out.
And they wouldn't let the water boys kick slide it off.
Yeah, and he like that ball went out 10 yards away from the actual field goal.
And if anyone that was pure luck. That was not. Oh yeah, that's a knuckleball. Close your eyes, kick the ball.
That's exactly what he wanted. Well, thanks on the sports desk, Daniel.
I am working on a curling update for the U.S. Olympic team.
We do need a preview before South Korea hosts the Olympics in February. We're probably have to have you work on every week during the Olympics.
That's my plan.
Yeah, what's that?
Will the North Koreans be there?
Man, that's going to be a hot
I
button
bet
thing.
they're pretty good at curling.
We're having the Olympics 150 miles away from the most controversial dictator on the planet right now. So that'll be fun.
Interesting.
I'm not going. I refuse to go. Dakota, what do you got for us?
All right. I just want to say really quick. Whenever I went to the Memorial Park Board meeting, all of the city and county officials had just found out about Brad Catcher and the Newcastle City Police Chief's passing. Really sad situation. Anybody that watches Boss Hog of Liberty knows that I've gone to the city council meetings a few times. I've heard Brad talk at those. Was always seemed like a really genuine guy, somebody who really cared about the people, not just the police work. You know, he seemed like a really good guy. I speak for all Boss Hog of Liberty whenever I say that he will be missed, and we really are going to send our thoughts and prayers out to him and his family.
Yep. Yeah, it's definitely been a rough year for the Newcastle Police Department. We had an officer that was shot this year, and thankfully Brandy's doing well. And then the passing.
Brandy's somebody we need to have on